Hey everyone, it's Austin Solomon, the Solomon Group at Coldwell Banker. Today we're talking about Zestimates, Z-estimates, the term that Zillow uses to estimate the value of a home and what your home is worth. So this is something that's very commonly, we encounter as agents a lot with sellers and buyers as a metric or a way to come up with a home's value. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that today. So a couple things. How is a Zestimate formulated or calculated? Well, it's a formula. And so what Zillow does is they pull, they scrub a bunch of data that's public. For example, the last sale price and the date of that sale. They find specs on the home based on municipal assessor sites, county land records, to obtain like acreage, lot sizes, etc. And then obviously Zillow is a big hub that records sales prices of homes that are surrounding the, in the surrounding areas. And then what it can do is it stores all this data. And it can make, can draw conclusions and look at observations for comparable sales in neighborhoods to approximate values. So that's Zillow's way of coming up with an approximate value for your home. And a lot of times, buyers and sellers like to tell me that, like to reference their Zestimate. And when we're having a conversation, and which is good, which is fine. I mean, that's a quick and easy way to have an approximate value. But the point of the episode today is I want to bring to light like how it's calculated, what are some of the pitfalls of it, and how it's appropriately used. I was thinking about it this morning, and I've actually never used a Zestimate as a reference point or to figure out a home's value. It's just not part of my routine to figure out what a home would sell for or what a home is worth because of some of these reasons that I'm going to explain. So not that I'm smarter than Zillow, but there's some pieces that I'm going to bring to light here. So when can Zestimates go wrong? Well, the biggest thing is that Zillow doesn't know how well a home is maintained. And it doesn't know if a home has updates or not. So that may not be factored into the Zestimate. Now, one of the pieces that Zillow does scrub, one of the data sources would be the assessment or the tax assessed value. And so if the assessment was updated, for example, let's say you redid your kitchen and the tax assessor came back through and redid your assessment, then it may be reflected in the Zestimate. But oftentimes, if it wasn't, then Zillow doesn't know that your kitchen's updated. So oftentimes, updates to flooring, fixtures, landscaping, etc., things that updates that normal homeowners would do aren't always reflected in the assessment or the Zestimate. Another piece to keep in mind is that a lot of times we've seen, there's data errors. I mean, they're scrubbing big data from lots of different places, and occasionally what you'll see is inaccurate data, which can skew the Zestimate. It could be Zillow may not have accurate information about, square footage, or potentially maybe the sale price of the property was not entered properly, way back when, etc., which can skew the data as well. Number 3, this is a big one too. Zillow doesn't know how the home feels, doesn't know how the home smells. It doesn't know how the layout is. Is it functional? Is it not? It doesn't know what's next door. All the intangibles of the property, it doesn't know, and therefore can't factor those things in. So that's where a realtor comes in to kind of estimate and say, hey, what would a ready, willing, and able buyer pay for this property given all of the different factors, right? So how do you use a Zestimate? It's a great starting point, to figure out just a ballpark of what the home what range it might be in. Just like, a lot of times we'll reference the tax assessed value, the fair market value. It's a good observation. It's a good talking point. But it's not something that's like conclusive. If Zillow says it's worth 150, it doesn't mean it's necessarily worth 150. That's where, again, consulting a realtor for a market value of the properties is the best, the best method, or like an appraisal, something more detailed. That's going to be able to be a little bit more specific to your home. As a buyer, if you're shopping on Zillow and you use that, it's not a bad thing just to reference if that Zestimate is significantly higher or lower than where the property is listed or what you're paying for the home. It might not be a bad idea just to say, hey, I wonder why is this, Zestimate why is it so low or so high? And maybe it's a good talking point. One other thing just a couple other observations with Zestimate that I've seen is that as soon as a property's listed, I've noticed that the Zestimate, changes quickly to. So if a property's listed, let me just give you an example. The Zestimate on a home is $180,000, and all of a sudden it's listed at $199,000. Quickly, the Zestimate changes to get a lot closer to that asking price. And so a lot of times you'll see that Zestimate mirror the asking price of the home, once the property is listed. So that value can change a lot of times when it's listed, or even when they update their formula, etc. So there you go. So that's what we're talking about today, Zestimates. I wouldn't use that as as the conclusive way to come up with a home value. It can be useful in some cases, but again, consulting with your agent, making sure that you have the proper education around the home's value. So, all right, thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the show.